Hello friends, today we are going to start our reproductive system. Let's get started with the male reproductive system. The most important thing that you need to know is what are the questions that are asked from this very chapter. These are the short questions that is already asked from this very chapter. There is spermatogenesis and the testosterone. Now as far as the lecture of a reproductive system is concerned, we are going to conduct the lecture in this sequence. First we discuss the male reproductive, then female reproductive, then we discuss about pregnancy, then formation of the placenta, the function of the placenta, after that the sex determination, after that lactation, and finally puberty. Right, so let's get started about male reproductive system. First thing first, about the anatomy of the testis. Now as you guys see this picture, this is the testis. This testis is made up of various lobules. These are the lobules that is drawn over here. So more or less 300 lobules are there in one testis, and each lobule contains 2 to 4 seminiferous tubules. And as far as the seminiferous tubule is concerned, basically 500 tubules are present per testis as far as the Mosby monoseries book is concerned, and according to the Guyton it is about 900 seminiferous tubule will be present. Now as far as the anatomy of the seminiferous tubule is concerned, it is basically, it has a two part. One is the coiled structure, another one is a straight structure. After that you can see these are the seminiferous tubules that is shown over here, right? After that this portion is known as a rete testis. So after seminiferous tubule there is rete testis. After this rete testis there is a epididymis. This entire structure is known as epididymis, and this epididymis has a head, body and tail. This one is the head, this one portion is the body, and lower portion is the tail. You already learned this thing in anatomy. And this tube that is just beside the epididymis, this one is the vas deferens. Got it? So epididymis is basically 6 meter long. If you remove the epididymis from a single testis and stretch it, it stretch about 6 meter. This entire structure that is coiled over here like this, it is if you remove from the testis and stretch it, it will be 6 meter in length. So this is a very beautiful picture that I am taken from the book Mosby monoseries. First, this one is the seminiferous tubules. After the seminiferous tubules, these are the coiled portion. Then there is a straight tubules, that is straight portion of a seminiferous tubules. Then this web like structure is the rete testis. After that rete testis, this portion is the epididymis. After that epididymis, this one is the head portion of the epididymis, this one is the body, and lower one is the tail. After the tail there is a vas deferens that is shown over here. This tube is known as vas deferens, and before the vas deferens will end, it is dilated portion. That dilated portion is known as ampulla, right? After that seminiferous tubule, seminal vesicle will be added in this structure, or it will be secrete their secretion inside this ejaculatory duct. So then seminiferous vesicle, the seminal vesicle, then it empty inside a ampulla. Then there is a ejaculatory duct. After that ejaculatory duct, it will be entered inside the prostate gland, and inside this prostate gland, prostate will secrete their secretion inside this ejaculatory duct, and finally membranous urethra and penile urethra, and this is the internal urethra. Now as far as the histology of the testis is concerned, if you take a sample of a testis and put under the microscope and stain, then the testis will be look like this. Now what is this testis? What is the structure? See, you can see that this circle portion are actually the seminiferous tubule. If you cut down the testis, they shown like a seminiferous tubule. There are T stands for tubular compartment. This entire circle is the tubular compartment. This I stands for intratubular compartment. There's compartment that is situated in between the tubules. Now let's zoom it out, or let's see in a higher magnification. In the lobules of the testes there are two compartments. See, this is the magnification of this picture. This one it is the intratubular compartment that is shown over here, the tubular compartment. Inside this tubular compartment there are germ cells and basically the supportive cell, that is Sartori cell, and the remaining portion that is situated outside the tubule, that adjacent to the two tubules, this compartment is known as peritubular compartment or intertubular compartment. Inside this peritubular compartment that is situated in between the tubule, it has a interstitial cell of Leydig. Got it? It has an interstitial cell of Leydig. Now let's get a picture of that particular discussion. This one is the tubular compartment. Inside this tubular compartment there is this blue color portion are the germ cell, spermatogonia and primary secondary spermatocyte, then spermatid, and finally the sperm cell. In between that you can see there are pink color cell, a very large cell, that is the Sartori cell. So basically inside the tubular compartment there are two type of cell. One is the Sartori cell, another one is the germ cell. And just outside the tubular compartment there is a peritubular compartment. Inside that there is an interstitial cell of Leydig or Leydig cell will be present. Now let's discuss the receptor that is present inside this cell. Receptor present over the cell. See, this is the tubular compartment. This green colored are the germ cell and this are the Sartori cell. I show one Sartori cell and the remaining are the germ cell, and this is one is a tubular compartment. Now let's see about the interstitial cell. There is a Leydig cell. Now over the Leydig cell there is one receptor present. Over the Sartori cell there is another receptor present. The receptor that is present over the Leydig cell are basically the receptor for LH hormone, that is LHR, and the receptor that is present over Sartori cell is basically receptor for FSHR, follicular stimulating hormone receptor, and this one is a luteinizing hormone receptor. Now over the LH receptor basically two type of hormone can bind. One is LH, another one is beta HCG, and this Leydig cell will ultimately secrete the testosterone. So once the LH will stimulate the Leydig cell will secrete the testosterone. This testosterone will eventually converted into dihydrotestosterone with the help of enzyme. As you already know, it is 5-alpha reductase. Now one more receptor is present over the Sartori cell. That receptor is for this testosterone. So Leydig cell has a receptor for LH only, and this beta HCG will be work on the same receptor, while in the case of Sartori cell it has a two type of receptor. One is FSH and another one is a receptor for androgen receptor or the testosterone receptor, that is not shown in this picture because the receptor will be present inside the cell. Now FSH receptor will obviously bind with the FSH. Now let's discuss about the Sartori cell in detail. Now as far as the Sartori cell is concerned, see inside this picture this is a tubular compartment, right? Now let's magnify this particular portion. If you magnify this particular portion it will be look like this, right? So these are the Sartori cell. Again this picture I taken from the Mosby monoseries of the endocrine physiology. This is the Sartori cell and these are the germ cell that is situated over here. This most present in the most basal level, it is known as the spermatogonia. So Sartori cell will be extend from the basal lamina. This one is the basal lamina and over here there is a lumen, right? And it surround the sperm cell. It basically surround the sperm cell and you can see there are tight junction will be there between two adjacent Sertoli cell. These are basically the junction between two Sertoli cell, and this junction is known as blood testis barrier. Tight junction will be present between the two adjacent Sertoli cell and it will make a blood testis barrier. By making this blood testis barrier, it make a immunologically safe microenvironment for the development of the sperm, and basically it divides this seminiferous tubule into two compartments. You can see that this blood testis barrier will divide the seminiferous tubule into two compartments. One compartment is situated over here, another compartment is situated toward the lumen side, and one compartment toward the basal side. So the compartment of the seminiferous tubule that is situated toward the basal side, it is known as a basal compartment, and the compartment that is situated toward the lumen side, it is known as adluminal compartment. And this is the spermatogonia. In order to release this spermatogonia inside the lumen, this blood testis barrier has to break and then assemble, then reassemble. Got it? So tight junction need to be deassemble and reassemble in order to release the spermatogonia inside the lumen. Clear? So in this beautiful diagram, you can understand that Sertoli cell will divide the seminiferous tubule into two compartments. One is the basal, another one is the adluminal. And inside the basal compartment there is a spermatogonia, and over the adluminal compartment there are further developmental sperm will be present. These are primary spermatocyte and secondary spermatocyte. Now this is all about the Sertoli cell anatomy. Now what are the function of the Sertoli cell? You need to remember the function of the Sertoli cell. First function that we already mentioned is the maintain blood testis barrier. Second function it is that it provide nutrition to the developing sperm. You can see that from entire sequence of the development of the sperm, Sertoli cell is present inside, just beside that. So it basically nourish the developing sperm. It is a basically nurse for the developing sperm. It basically responsible for release of the sperm. It is known as spermiation. It determines the spermiation. Now what is the spermiation? Spermiation is basically the thing that most of the time this sperm will be attached to the Sertoli cell. Suppose this one is the last stage of spermatogenesis. In order to release the sperm inside the lumen, they have to detach from the Sertoli cell. So that Sertoli cell, the final release of a sperm from the adhesion of the Sertoli cell, that is known as spermiation. You have to familiar with the certain terminology. One is this spermiation, another one is spermatogenesis, next one is spermiogenesis. So this one is spermiation. What is spermiation? Spermiation is release of a sperm from adhesion from a Sertoli cell. Now the Sertoli cell, as we discussed in the receptor segment, that it has a two type of receptor. One is the FSH receptor, another one is the androgen receptor. Over that androgen receptor, testosterone will bind. And one more thing, that if testosterone does not bind with the Sertoli cell, the spermatogenesis will not be completed. So next one is production. Now as far as the synthesis and secretion is concerned, the Sertoli cell will produce 3A or AAA. What is AAA? It produces ABP, AMH and aromatase. Now what is ABP? ABP stands for androgen binding protein, over which the androgen or the testosterone will bind. What is AMH? AMH is anti-Mullerian hormone, right? That we discuss in our subsequent slide. What is anti-Mullerian hormone? And the last one is the aromatase. Now this aromatase is a enzyme that convert testosterone into the estrogen. Yes, you heard it correct, estrogen. Sertoli cell will convert testosterone into the estrogen, and that estrogen has some function over there that we discuss in our subsequent slide. So production of 3A or AAA, ABP, AMH and aromatase. And by aromatase it convert testosterone into the estrogen. That estrogen is estradiol 17 beta. Now let's discuss about the Leydig cell. That is Leydig cell that is situated into the intertubular compartment or peritubular compartment or in the interstitial space. That Leydig cell will produce the actual testosterone, right? So testosterone first diffuse into Sertoli cell, or it also entered inside the blood. So the sole output of testosterone in male is the Leydig cell. Now after formation of the testosterone, this testosterone will diffuse inside this basal membrane and it will bind with the Sertoli cell and will stimulate the spermatogenesis. On one more route of this testosterone, it will be entered inside the blood circulation and perform its function. Now this circulating testosterone that will be entered inside the blood circulation will be responsible for the negative feedback effect that eventually regulate the LH secretion. Now here's the thing, this testosterone will give negative feedback to LH secretion. It does not give negative feedback to the FSH, right? In order to give negative feedback to the FSH, Sertoli cell will make inhibin B. Yes, there is another enzyme, another hormone, that is a peptide hormone basically. Sertoli cell will make inhibin B, and that inhibin B will eventually give a negative feedback inhibition to the anterior pituitary to secrete FSH, that we discuss in our subsequent slide. So that negative feedback will be work over the hypothalamus and over the anterior pituitary. Now let's understand the spermatogenesis. Now as far as the spermatogenesis is concerned, let's take a sample of that particular portion. If you take a cut section of one in tubular compartment and zoom it out, it will be look like this. You can see this is the very big Sertoli cell. This entire is the Sertoli cell, and in between these two Sertoli cell there are germ cell, there are the spermatogonia. So most basal compartment over here, it is a spermatogonium. Then it will be divided and will be pushed this further inside the lumen. This first become the primary spermatocyte, then the secondary spermatocyte, and then spermatid, and eventually become a actual sperm like looking structure, right? So this entire period of the spermatogenesis from spermatogonia to the spermatozoa will take about 74 days. In some book it is written as 72 days, but remember it is 74 days. Now let's discuss this entire sequence of the event. Spermatogonia, that is basically present over the basal compartment. It will undergo several mitotic division. It will make two type of cell, type A and type B. Type A cell will remain at the basal compartment as a germ cell, and type B will eventually enter inside primary spermatocyte. This is again 2N in structure. This primary spermatocyte will eventually enter inside the meiotic division. After the meiotic division, they make a secondary spermatocyte. This secondary spermatocyte is N division or haploid in number, and that secondary spermatocyte will eventually make a mitotic division and make a spermatid. Again this spermatid is haploid in number. Now this spermatid will undergo a maturation process. This maturation process is known as spermiogenesis. Yes, there is another terminology that you need to remember, that is spermiogenesis. Now what is spermiogenesis? It is actually the process by which spermatid will undergo to become mature sperm. After undergoing to the spermiogenesis, spermatozoa will release. Now in this very slide I would like to mention one more thing, that is spermiation. We discuss in the Sertoli cell, right? What is spermiation? Spermiation is the release of a sperm from attachment of a Sertoli cell, right? What is spermiogenesis? Spermiogenesis is the conversion of the spermatid into the mature sperm. And what is spermatogenesis? It is a formation of a sperm, right? Now this is the entire sequence of the event. One more time, spermatogonia will make a primary spermatocyte. This primary spermatocyte will make a secondary spermatocyte. This secondary spermatocyte will make a spermatid, after spermiogenesis it make a spermatozoa. I give you the revision because it is asked in exam, right? What is the spermatogenesis, what is permeation, and what is spermiogenesis, right? Now what about the spermatogenesis? About temperature control. Spermatogenesis is a temperature dependent mechanism. Now spermatogenesis is basically stop at body temperature. That's why the scrotum is available outside the body. So the scrotum is basically 4 degree cooler than the actual abdominal cavity and or intra or core temperature. So inside the sperm the temperature will be maintained at 32 degrees Celsius. And how it will be maintained at 32 degrees Celsius, or how it will be less 4 degree cooler than the abdominal cavity? So basically there are two mechanisms. One mechanism is the counter current heat exchanger that is present over the spermatic cord. See, in order to that, this is the counter current flow of the blood. By this counter current mechanism, as you understand the counter current mechanism from the kidney, it will prevent the loss of the osmotic modularity or the osmotic gradient in the medullary interstitium. In this case, in our case, it will regulate the temperature. It do not let the temperature of a scrotum to increase more than 32 degree, right? So situation basically that increase the heat around the testis in the human. Basically, let's say for the example hot bath, or if you wear a athletic supporter that will stick to the scrotum, to the abdominal cavity, or to the very near to the body, then it will reduce the sperm count, and basically in some cases it will be reduced up to the 90%. What is the second mechanism responsible for this temperature control is the contraction and relaxation of the cremasteric muscle. So this is the cremasteric muscle that is situated over the scrotum. If there is the temperature will decrease less than 32 degree, then this cremasteric muscle will contract and it will adjust in such a way that scrotum will be present near the body. And if the temperature is more inside our body, then this cremasteric muscle will relax and let the testis will be go away from the body, right? This is basically contraction and relaxation of the cremasteric muscle. Now there is one comment is basically asked from this very slide, that is sperm count tend to be greater in winter. So you need to write it down, all the things that we mentioned in our previous slide, that is spermatogenesis stop at the body temperature, scrotum is basically 4 degree cooler than the abdominal cavity and maintain at 32 degrees Celsius by two mechanisms. One is counter current heat exchanger and contraction or relaxation of the cremasteric muscle. Now here's the main thing. In winter the environmental temperature is basically reduced, so scrotum will be exposed to the low temperature and it will be stimulate the spermatogenesis. This is the actually the answer. But in Guénon there is one statement that is given. That statement is like this. There is the same word that is used in Guénon. There is evidence suggests a seasonal effect in men with sperm count being greater in the winter regardless of the temperature to which the scrotum is exposed, right? This is the statement from the Guénon itself. Now this is all about the spermatogenesis and the temperature mechanism. Now let's discuss about the spermatozoa in detail. Now as far as the spermatozoa is concerned, this is the one spermatozoa or sperm. One spermatogonia will after 74 days will make 512 or 512 spermatid. So basically one spermatogonia will eventually converted into 512 sperm. The spermatid is obviously the epithelioid cell, same as the other cell. It differentiated into the spermatozoa that is known as spermiogenesis. Now the spermatozoa or spermatozoon, this one sperm has a three structure. One is the head, another one is the neck and the tail. Now let's discuss that structure one by one. Now as far as the head is concerned, this is the head portion. Head portion has a two structure. One is the nucleus, another one is the acrosome. So head has a two structure. One is the condensed nucleus become condensed, and acrosomal vesicle, that is acrosome, that is situated over the top. Now this vesicle that is present over the top, it contain hydrolytic enzyme, right? Basically the hyaluronidase. Now what is function is basically the proteolytic enzyme, and that is responsible to entry of the sperm inside the ovum. It is important for allowing a sperm to enter inside the ovum. This is all about the head. You need to remember that head has two structure. One is the nucleus, another one is the acrosomal vesicle, right? Now let's discuss about the neck. Neck portion is this basal portion that is written over here is the neck portion. So neck portion has a two centriole. Remember this slide. Neck is not this mid piece, right? Neck is only the segment that is drawn in between over here, the basal body. This is the only the neck portion. It has a two centriole. One is the proximal, another one is the distal. Now remember the function. Proximal centriole will remain attached to the nucleus. Distal centriole will generate exonym. Now what is exonym? Is basically the configuration of a microtubules up to 9+2 configuration. If you do not remember the configuration 9+2, just remember that distal centriole will eventually make the exonym, right? The entire structure that is situated inside the tail portion, it will be made by neck distal centriole. The portion that is situated inside the tail, you can see there is exonym. This exonym will be made by distal centriole. Now as far as the tail is concerned, tail has a three segment. One is the middle piece that is drawn over here, mid piece. This one is the mid piece, then this portion is the principal piece, and finally the end piece, right? So tail has basically three portion, and you can see in this mid piece there is a mitochondria. Middle piece will contain collar of the mitochondria, and basically the entire sequence of the motility of the sperm will be 1 to 4 millimeter per minute. Now here's one more thing I would like to highlight is that inside this principal piece that is shown over here, this principal piece has a one protein. That protein or the channel is known as a Caspar. Name of the channel, remember the name of the channel, it Caspar. That Caspar is a calcium channel that is responsible for activation of a or making the motility more pronounced, right? Now how the sperm get transported in male tract? The same route that is shown in our anatomy of the testis, basically starting from the seminiferous tubule. Then sperm will release from the Sertoli cell, that is it entered inside the red testis. Now inside this red testis, sperm get concentrated. Here comes the action of estrogen. What estrogen do? That is the sperm concentration is done by estrogen. What estrogen do? Estrogen will reabsorb the fluid that is present inside the red testis. Alright, so yes, estrogen is present inside male, and it has a function also. First function is reabsorption of the fluid in the red testis, is basically concentrate the sperm. So without that function, the person have a less of the sperm count, and the semen will be diluted, and person may be become infertile. Second function of the estrogen is epiphyseal closure, same as in female. After that, after getting concentrated inside the red testis by estrogen, the sperm will enter inside the epididymis. Inside the epididymis, first entered inside the head, then the body, and finally inside the tail. After that, it will eventually enter inside the vas deferens. Now you might be thinking, what is the role of the epididymis? Epididymis is a big structure, head, body, and tail. So what is the role of the epididymis? Now as you can see, epididymis is a very large tail. You can see this one is the head, this one is the body, this one is the tail, right? It is basically 6 meter long tube. So epididymis, the sperm take about 12 to 26 days to transfer from the head to the tail of the epididymis. It takes basically 2 to 10 days. In some book it is written as a 12 to 26 days, right? In Sirkar, there is one book known as Soumya Sarkar. In that book it is written as a 12 to 26 days. This 2 to 10 days will be written in the guidance. So This epididymis has a three major function. One is the maturation of the sperm, second function is the storage of a sperm, and the next function is decapacitation of a sperm. Now basically motility of the sperm will be acquired in head and the body. So after release of a rated testis, sperm is yet not motile, but when it is present inside the head and body, they get motile. But this motility is not a final motility. The motility is just getting started. The final motility will be take place in the female genital tract, basically uterus. Now this motility will be suppressed in tail. That suppression of the motility is known as decapacitation, right? So here's the thing, motility is just getting started in the head and the body. Once the sperm will approach to the tail of the epididymis, again motility will be suppressed. That suppression of the motility is known as decapacitation. So there might be capacitation also, that we discuss in our next slide. So this suppression of the motility will be by acidic pH or the lactate. This lactate will be secreted by epididymis. So inside the epididymis, first sperm get motility in head and body. Once it approach to the tail, the motility will be removed, suppress the motility. That condition, that process is known as decapacitation and by acidic pH. Now how the sperm get mature inside the epididymis? The first thing first is the increased sperm motility. How the sperm start motility or how sperm become motile? Basically activation of the Cat-spur channel or the calcium channel that is situated over the principal piece of a tail, right? This is the first step of the maturation. Now second thing the sperm get mature is the development of a zona binding capacity. You guys, if you know that there is a one entire covering or coating over the ovum, that is zona pellucida. That over the zona pellucida, to bind, in order to bind with the zona pellucida, this sperm will develop a receptor, particular receptor. Via this receptor, sperm will bind with the zona pellucida. That receptor is known as ZP3 receptor. So inside this epididymis, the sperm will develop a zona binding capacity by developing ZP3 receptor. It also develop ability to undergo acrosomal reaction. Yes, this is third one, that is develop ability to undergo acrosomal reaction. The acrosomal vesicle that is present over the top of a sperm head, now they get ability to get react, right? And basically, yes, condensation of the sperm, condensation of the chromatin of the sperm, the nucleus condensation will be appear or will be completed in epididymis. So as far as the number is concerned, 2 testes will form 120 million of the sperm per day. Yes, 2 testes will make 120 million sperm of a day. Now let's discuss about the decapacitation. Now decapacitation will basically involve stabilization of the cell membrane to prevent spermatozoa to undergo acrosomal reaction, right? We want acrosomal reaction to happen inside the female genital tract, but in order to save this acrosomal reaction, we want that acrosomal reaction should not supposed to not happens inside the male genital tract. So we need decapacitation, we need to stabilize this membrane. So motility basically inhibited by the acidic pH, and it will be stimulated when the pH is alkaline. So epididymal fluid is basically contain lactate, it will be lower the pH and so the motility. And sperm recover motility by prostatic fluid. This prostatic fluid has a higher amount of pH, increase intracellular pH, and sperm get motile. Right? So motility is suppressed by the tail of the epididymis, that is known as decapacitation. Okay, that's it for our today's lecture.